Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, the Canadian Snowman, here once again with some more awesome videos, some awesome history videos. We're continuing the Norman conquests. This is the Battle of Cerami. I don't know. 1063. So we were just at Italy, and not Muslims, Normans have made their presence known there, and they got themselves a foothold and basically have settled down there. And yeah, they obviously conquested, if that's a word, part of Italy, and now apparently they're on the Sicily. Where is Sicily at again? Anyways, I'm gonna find out. But Norman Muslim War. So I guess we're going against the Muslims now. And yeah, oh yeah, by the way, okay. So the Normandy at this point in history was its own country, because I was getting comments from both sides, and I just ended up Googling it. So whatever the internet says goes, right, and the internet says that the Normans at this stage in history is its own country. So Normandy, the Normans are from Normandy because the Normans are from like the Vikings that basically made a settlement there, became his own country pretty much, and yeah, so Normandy is his own country for now. Okay, so yeah, I'm still gonna get a bunch of comments saying no, it's not, but the internet is always right, right? So since the internet's always right, I'm gonna go by the internet. Yeah, that's sarcasm, by the way. Sarcasm. Oh man, guys, please don't take me so seriously. I'm just kidding. Most of you guys are really cool and are really awesome and help me out a lot. There's always that 1% though that comes at me. So when I say stuff like that, I'm just speaking to the 1%. So that's it. Okay. Anyways, yeah. And what were you? Yeah, we're on to the. Yes, we're doing this video. I was gonna say something before this video, and now I forgot. Uh, please hit the like and subscribe below, and Kings and Generals. Yeah, this seems like so far a pretty awesome series, pretty informative, and yeah, which I guess every time I do a video, it's like that, right? So yeah, I've had a couple of drinks, guys. I'm sorry, couple of drinks, and now I'm drinking chocolate milk. So right now it's like 8 p.m. right now for me. You'll see this video in the morning for me anyway. Okay. Anyways, 3, 2, 1, bam. Sicily, here we come, guys.
Within 4 decades of their arrival in Italy, the Norse-descended Normans had sunk their claws into the peninsula, humbling many of the local rulers, including the Pope in Rome, whose alliance was defeated by them. Now, with their foothold secure in the heart of the Latin world, they turned their attention to the south. Welcome to part 2 of our series on the Normans in Italy, where they will fight against the Muslims in Sicily. Thanks.
Yes, definitely. If you're new to my channel, it's the first video you're ever watching, I would suggest doing the previous video I did before this one. That's kind of the start of the Norman conquest. And then after that, I would definitely suggest to check out my playlist, because we've covered a lot of awesome stuff here on this channel, but had a lot of fun. And yeah, you should definitely do that. And then continue on the journey, because usually I try to get videos done every day. Sometimes I don't, but anyways, I'm interrupting my own video here, so I'm sorry. Here we go. We're going south.
The Normans in Italy, where they will fight against the Muslims in Sicily. Thanks to Call of War for sponsoring this video. Call of War is a free-to-play real-time cross-play 120 different units, battles with up ground with battalions of infantry each week. Support our channel by downloading Call of War. Sign up through the link in the description.
Okay.
The Normans had not been idle since their victory over Pope Leo at Civitate. By the year 1060, they had stabilized their rule over northern Apulia, properly conquered Calabria, and seized a sizable chunk of Campania. The papacy was forced to abandon their plan to expel them from Italy, and instead render legitimacy to the Norman realm, recognizing it as the Duchy of Apulia and Calabria. Ruling this duchy was the redoubtable Robert de Hauteville, known to friend and foe as Guiscard, a title translating to the Cunning. He and his brother Roger de Hauteville were the head and backbone of Norman Italy, and in time would establish themselves as two of the greatest conquerors of the Middle Ages. Nominally a papal vassal, the Normans remained restless and free-spirited. Always on the lookout for more land and plunder, they would soon turn their attention towards the Strait of Messina and eye the fertile lemon fields across the narrow waters. By the mid-11th century, the Isle of Sicily had been under Muslim rule for over 150 years. It had been the Tunisian Aghlabid dynasty that had ousted...
I'm sorry, I forgot that, yeah, this is Sicily. Duh. I guess I had like a blonde moment there. But for some reason, I was thinking of Sicily in a totally different spot. When, oh yeah, this is Sicily. Never mind. Makes sense now. For some reason, I thought we were going to like more towards Constantinople, going more that way. But no, okay. So it definitely makes sense for, because the Normans already got a foothold, southern Italy. So it definitely makes sense now just to go for Sicily because it's just right there. I mean, Rome did it right, so let's see if Normans can do it. Let's see if they get all of Sicily or just part of it. It should be interesting.
150 years. It had been the Tunisian Aghlabid dynasty that had ousted the Byzantines in 830 AD, before later being subsumed by the Fatimid juggernaut. In 948, an independent emirate ruled by the Kalbids was established on the island. Sicily had flourished under Islamic purview. It was considered perhaps the wealthiest island in the Mediterranean, its climate sunny and warm, its fields rich and fertile. Its capital city, Palermo, was the second largest in all of Europe, with a massive population of 350,000 citizens. However, by 1060, not all was well on the idyllic isle. The last Kalbite emir had been assassinated in 1052, and with his death, the island fractured politically into 3 principalities, all feuding with one another for dominion.
Okay, I'm sorry, I should let it finish the sentence, but so it's pretty much it, because I guess the Normans are pretty much they're just looking for they're very opportunistic. They see like a way to get a foothold in there. They're going to exploit it, take advantage of it. And obviously, I was wondering why Sicily, but I guess because Sicily, it's just good timing right now. They're all feuding against each other, so why not attack now while they're when it's chaos over there, because none of these 3 guys are going to give in to the other 2. So if they kind of just pick off one by one, I think they have a good chance. So yeah, I'm sure this probably doesn't happen until the death that just happened there. So yeah, let's do it. And obviously it's great land, so why not, man? You see the fertile lands, and it's in a great spot, and Normans are pretty good on the water, right? They haven't really said much about their naval capabilities, but I'm assuming so. I mean, they took ships down to Italy, and Normandy's on the coast, so I'd imagine they had a good fleet.
Dominion over the whole realm. Present also was a sizable population of native Greek Christians who sought greater autonomy and a co-religionist protector from across the sea. The Pope hoped that Guiscard would conquer Sicily in the name of Christendom, and made Robert Guiscard the Duke of Sicily, despite him having no control over the island. Of course, Robert needed very little convincing from his spiritual suzerain to open up the new southern frontier and attempt to conquer the rich island.
More reason to now.
The opportunity to invade Sicily came when the ruler of Syracuse, Ibn Timna, who was deeply embroiled in a blood feud with his rival, the ruler of Agrigento, Ibn Hawis, approached Roger de Hauteville in Calabria and asked for his aid. Ibn Timna had been thoroughly crushed in battle, and had finally become desperate enough to turn to the Normans for help in subduing his foe, a notion which by now everyone else in southern Italy would call a profoundly bad idea. Roger, the younger and more hot-blooded of the Hauteville brothers, jumped at this opportunity. In the winter of 1061, 150 mounted Norman knights and a handful of auxiliaries crossed the strait and landed in the hinterlands northwest of Messina. They pillaged the rich and undefended.
Just a quick question. Is there a bridge between Sicily and Italy? Is that a thing, or is it just impossible, or is it really like too far for that kind of thing? Just curious. Because we've covered this stretch before, with the Romans and stuff. So
in the hinterlands northwest of Messina. They pillaged the rich and undefended countryside before handily crushing a Muslim army that had been raised against them. Roger and his knights attacked Messina, but were driven from the city's fortified walls. They retreated to their ships, only to find that they had been scattered by a Muslim fleet. They bunkered on the stormy beach for 3 days, fending off raids from Messina, until on the 4th day their ships returned and they evacuated safely with their loot in tow. While their first foray into Sicily had been something of a misstep, the Normans now knew of the riches of the Southern Isle and resolved to return. In the spring of the next year, they levied another army to do just that, comprised of 2,000 infantry and 450 mounted knights, led this time by both Hauteville brothers. Knowing they would need to outmaneuver the Muslim fleet to avoid meeting a watery grave before even touching Sicilian soil, they devised a plan. Robert mustered the lion's share of his men and ships at the Rock of Scylla to divert the attention of the Muslim fleet. Indeed, as the forces of Ibn Hawis gathered on the opposite end of the strait to oppose the Norman landing, Roger had sneakily made the crossing 5 miles south with some 500 men. They prowled the countryside undetected and struck Messina from the south. Roger was dumbfounded to find that Robert's diversion had worked better than they could have ever expected.
Wow.
The city had been left entirely unprotected. The Normans seized it with barely a fight, and the Muslim army outside the city, realizing they were caught in a pincer, fled westwards.
Wow.
The Greek Christian citizens of Messina greeted the Normans as liberators and offered the conquering knights a thanksgiving service. The Hautevilles rested briefly before continuing their campaign. Soon their Muslim ally Ibn Timna attached his army to theirs, and together they marched deeper into the heart of the island.
Well, I think, in any kind of battle, that's got to be the hardest part, just getting a foothold on that island or on that land. And now that they got Messina, I mean, they got, now they can get supplies, from Italy and stuff like that. So now it just seems like a matter of time before they push their way inward. Because apparently the people of Messina, looked at them as liberators. So it's not like the people here are not wanting them there. So definitely interesting. I wonder how the rest of the land feels about this. And it's got to be tough if you're if this is their land and their own people are kind of against them or are going to be defecting. Then again, like I said, I'm not sure how the rest of this country feels, but yeah, they're on their way now. Excuse me, the Normans are on their way.
His army to theirs, and together they marched deeper into the heart of the island. Much of eastern Sicily was loyal to Ibn Timna and did not resist the movement of his Norman allies. The town of Paterno fell quickly, and the Normans soon came upon the mountain fortress of Enna, the principal stronghold of Ibn Hawas. Knowing they could never penetrate the castle walls, the Normans set to pillaging the countryside to harass Ibn Hawas into open battle. This worked like a charm, and despite vastly outnumbering his foe, Hawas's light Arabic infantry proved no match for heavy Norman knights, who crushed their opponents in the field.
Yeah, because it's one of those things, like before, Normans are probably a lot more experienced, and just a lot better equipment. I mean, I'm not sure how the people in Sicily, how their infantry is, but like the Normans, I mean, they got helmets, they got obviously they got metal armor, so they can probably better shields, and swords, so they can withstand probably some slashes and stuff like that. And the other guys probably just bare bones, just no armor, and then maybe a shield and a sword. So there's no surprising that one of these Normans could probably easily hack through a couple of these other guys before the other guys can kind of like get a good shot in. So yeah, something's got to be said for experience, armor, and just better trained. You can probably take on armies like 3 times your size as long as you have all 3 of those up on them, right?
Despite this great victory, Robert knew that he was overextended and thus left the fortress untaken, consolidating his gains in northeastern Sicily while allowing most of his soldiers to return to their families in Apulia with loot in hand. Roger, on the other hand, rode into the predominantly Greek Christian town of Troina, which welcomed him as a liberator. Here he wintered, but then he learned that one Judith of Evro had arrived in Calabria. She was the daughter of a Franco-Norman noble and was Roger's betrothed, so he returned home to marry her.
Wow. Cool.
However, marital bliss would soon turn into domestic turmoil. Roger was incensed with his older brother's tendency to take the lion's share of land and loot won in their campaigns. The younger Hauteville demanded titles and privileges and threatened to take them by force. Absolutely enraged by his little brother's insolence, Robert rode down to Roger's capital at Mileto and laid siege to it.
What?
Roger slipped out of his capital in disguise and into the nearby town of Gerace. He was pursued ardently by his older brother, but the townsfolk of Gerace, loyal to Roger, managed to capture Robert and present him to the junior de Hauteville.
Wow.
Roger now had a choice to make. He realized that without Robert, his political ambitions were crippled, and he loved his brother. In an almost comical fashion, the 2 siblings embraced one another in a teary-eyed reconciliation, naturally after Roger was promised his fair share of land and loot. A civil war had been prevented, and the conquest of Sicily could now continue.
That's awesome, though. Come on, that's awesome. Because you know how, like, your brothers and siblings are, man. Like, you guys might go at each other and, like, you might hate each other for that moment, but in the end, that's your blood and you love each other. And so that's kind of really cool. Like, back then, because we've seen, like, a lot of family members in these videos just kill each other, and it's just kind of nice to see them like, hey, just come on, just give me what I want, I'll let you free. You're my brother, I love you. And then lets him free and, sends him on his way. And it's true, like, if he kills his brother, then the land his brother has up north is probably going to be taken over, because who else is going to take control of it? And then it makes his situation a lot weaker to where, other forces can come down and take his land. So it just makes perfect sense, and, to keep him alive. And plus, it's his brother, So I just think that's just really cool, because we've seen a lot of family members and brothers and all that stuff kind of kill each other in a war like this. And to see a couple get along and kind of have this little family squabble, it's just kind of awesome to see. I think so, anyway, man.
A civil war had been prevented, and the conquest of Sicily could now continue. The situation in the Southern Isle had become decidedly more complex. Ibn Timna had been ambushed and slain while campaigning against Ibn Hawwas in northern Sicily, thereby eliminating the Normans' only local ally. This did not deter the Autoviles, and in the summer of 1062, Roger returned to Sicily while Robert remained in Apulia to put down Byzantine-supported rebellions in the region. The Norman expeditionary force arrived back in Troina to a surprisingly chilly reception. Initially, the Greek Christians hailed the Normans as liberators, but they soon realized that the Normans were harsh overlords who took what they wanted with little regard for the law.
True. You've seen it.
Roger did not pick up on the tension in the city and departed with the bulk of his army to besiege the city of Nicosia, leaving Judith behind. The local population immediately rose up in revolt, forming a riotous mob and attempting to kidnap Judith, hoping that having her as a hostage would provide them the leverage needed to force Roger to withdraw from their city. The small Norman garrison left in Troina rallied to the defense of their lady, and a fierce melee ensued across the narrow streets. From there, the situation snowballed. Roger managed to gallop back to the city in time to join the garrison, but to his dismay, he found that thousands of Muslims from the surrounding countryside had taken up arms and flooded into Troina to aid the Christian Greeks.
Wow.
Overwhelmed, Roger was forced to order a general retreat into Troina's citadel, where the Normans holed up and prepared to weather a siege. For 4 months they held out within the citadel, suffering through a brutally icy winter. Once again, the Normans' salvation came through sheer luck. The Saracen soldiers guarding the perimeter had taken to drinking red wine to keep themselves warm in the frigid snows. Normally forbidden from drinking alcohol by the laws of their faith, they soon proved to be quite susceptible to its intoxicating effects. Roger soon realized he could take advantage of this drunkenness, and on a chilling January night, led a foray beyond his makeshift barricades and into the open streets. One by one, they subdued the Muslim outposts, all manned by inebriated, snoozing guards.
Wow.
Their position now secure, they engaged the Greek and Saracen besiegers in a general melee and retook the city.
Wow.
By now,
I gotta pause for that. They got drunk. Yeah, just like anything else, if you're new to it, the effects are going to be just a lot heavier on it, So, if you're someone, obviously, if you're used to drinking and you bring your buddy over, probably he might not have drinking in his life, and you guys just start throwing him down. The one who's not, used to it, is obviously going to get drunk really quickly, and then, yeah, that's kind of funny, Wow, hey guys, they're drunk out there. Let's go take them down. And oh my God, they're getting slaughtered. Because anyone, I've been drunk. I'm sure a lot of you've been drunk. If you're drunk, there's no way you're ready to fight, man. Like you're dead. But wow, I don't think we've seen one of those on this channel yet. Battle won because of drunkenness. So interesting. I'm loving this episode, man. There's so many cool new things coming to light here, Got the brothers thing, we got the drunk thing. This is great.
Retook the city. By now, the Muslim rulers of Sicily had come to realize what the Byzantines and Lombards had before them. The Normans were no mere mercenaries. They were a threat to the very existence of Islamic rule on their island. Quickly, the Saracen princes set aside their differences and put up a united front against the Norman encroachment.
I was waiting for
They
that.
looked across the Mediterranean for reinforcements and received them from the Zirid Sultan Temim, who sent a sizable army of North African Berbers to Sicily, led by his princely sons, to crush the invasion. Roger was forced to return to Calabria to retrieve more horses for his knights, having eaten most of the ones they had during the siege. In the meantime, his wife Judith proved a capable martial commander, heading the defense of Troina while bands of Normans headed out to pillage the countryside for supplies.
I just want to say this too. It is awesome to see that, him and his wife are getting along now, because at the beginning there, after the honeymoon period, there seems some like squabbling going on between them, and when Judith got left there in the town, and then the people rose up against her, I was kind of expecting Roger just to be like, nah, I don't really need her, and kind of, and her to just be taken captive. But he came back, and I guess like a loving husband, and even though they had their squabbles, and like, we may not be getting along great, but that's my wife, like I can't stand for this. So come back, basically saves her, and now it's proven to be that she's a great commander. So that's awesome to see too. That husband and wife here. They're sharing everything here, and she's proving her worth, and this is just kind of cool to see. I'm just liking the whole like thing going on here. I think it's just really neat to see. Anyways, let me know your thoughts.
while bands of Normans headed out to pillage the countryside for supplies. By the time Roger returned to Sicily, a massive Muslim army had gathered at Palermo and was heading eastwards towards his position. It was a dire situation. Roger had only around 130 knights and 500 infantrymen at his disposal. He could not count for help from his older brother either, as Robert's forces were tied down fighting the Byzantines in Apulia. The Benedictine monk Malaterra claims that the Saracen army numbered up to 50,000.
Whoa!
While this is almost certainly hyperbole, it is safe to assume the Muslims numbered at least several thousand. Unwilling to sustain another drawn-out siege, Roger dispatched his cousin Serlo with a contingent of 30 knights to secure Cerami, a town 8 miles west of Troina. In June of 1063, the two forces clashed. The Muslim vanguard was the first to come upon Serlo's 30 knights, who had barred themselves within the walls of Cerami. The Muslims flung themselves upon the town walls, but were unable to dislodge their Norman foes. 3 days later, Roger finally arrived to relieve Serlo's desperate situation, just in time to come head-to-head with the bulk of the Saracen army.
I'm sorry, not Roger.
The vanguard regrouped and joined the main Muslim ranks.
Get back
The
inside.
Norman count led a cavalry charge into his enemy, but was repulsed. Following that, he had barely enough time to form a defensive line before the sheer weight of the Muslim army crashed down upon his meager force. Despite being massively outnumbered, and against all odds, the Norman line held, with their heavy armor and knightly discipline being once more the deciding factor in battle. Serlo, meanwhile, had sallied out of Cerami, slammed into the Muslim left flank with his cavalry, and began to carve a bloody path through an ocean of lightly armored Saracens towards his Norman comrades.
Get him.
As day turned to evening, Muslim morale collapsed, and they fled the field.
Yeah.
Malaterra claims that the Normans slew over 20,000 men at Cerami, but this is once again likely an exaggeration. Nevertheless, they had won yet another highly unlikely victory. Much like how the Battle of Civitate had cemented their presence in the southern Italian mainland, the Battle of Cerami established the permanence of the Normans in Sicily.
Yes. Man, I was worried. I ain't gonna lie. I was worried. I thought Roger was dead that time. Like, I ain't gonna lie, that they were totally outnumbered, and I thought, okay, this is it. They're gonna die, and then I don't know. We're gonna bring in some more Normans to kind of finish it off, or that was gonna be the end of this episode, and they only get that part of Sicily, and it was gonna be over. And I'm happy to see that he survives. I'm sorry. I like this family. I want this family to succeed, even though, in reality, they might not be nice people, but in this video, it just seems like a cool family. Anyways. Good stuff.
While the Normans had secured their control over the northeastern part of the island, their conquest of all Sicily was slowed exponentially in the years that followed. In 1064, Both Roger and Robert mustered their levies and laid siege to Palermo, knowing that control over the immensely prosperous capital city was the only way to guarantee dominion over the whole island. During the siege, their camp was thoroughly infested by a species of venomous tarantula. Following this, the Normans made the completely and utterly reasonable decision to abandon the entire campaign.
Tarantulas?
The years that followed saw Sicilian expansion delayed by wars fought on other fronts. Robert returned to Apulia to once more put down the perpetual rebellions in his domain. Without the aid of his brother's army, Roger was able to hold his Sicilian territory, but was prevented from making any significant land gains into the regions still dominated by Muslim emirs. After a few years of lull, the gears of war once more began to turn. In 1068, Roger won a decisive victory over the Muslims in an engagement outside the town of Missolmeri, which forced the Muslims of Sicily to begin turning on themselves. The Kalbids of Palermo, led by Ibn Hawwas, resolved that it was the interference of the North African Zirids that had led to their demise and led an uprising against their rule. As riots broke out in Palermo, Ibn Hawwas was killed, and the Zirid princes, deciding they had lost enough in Sicily, packed up and returned to North Africa.
What?
Muslim Sicily was now leaderless and deprived of the bulk of its army. Its capital lay helpless to invasion. In the year 1071, Robert Guiscard capped off a long and grueling campaign in Apulia when he finally conquered Bari, ending the Byzantine presence in Italy once and for all. With the southern mainland firmly in Norman hands, the full might of the Franco-Norsemen could be finally rendered upon Palermo, the jewel of the Mediterranean. Indeed, the city soon fell to the combined might of the Hauteville brothers, and by 1072 was fully in Norman hands. The Islamic rump state in Sicily was given a reprieve, as the Hautevilles turned their conquering armies towards Naples, Amalfi, Salerno and Abruzzo. But by now, their fate was inevitable. Roger had been made the first Count of Sicily, the vassal of his brother, the Duke of Apulia. In 1085, he conquered Syracuse, the last great Muslim city in Sicily. In 1091, Noto, the final Islamic outpost, fell to the relentless de Hauteville, ending nearly 2 centuries of Muslim rule on the island. For the next 100 years, the borders of the Norman realm would go largely unchanged. While the region had new masters, its people remained diverse. The Normans, alongside their Orthodox Greek and Muslim Arab subjects, created perhaps the most culturally dynamic kingdom in the history of medieval Europe. The sponsor of this video, Call of War, allows you to take command of your nation's army during...
Is that it, or is that it? No, exciting. Play?
In the next episode, we will explore just what made Norman Italy so unique. So make sure you are subscribed to our channel and have pressed the bell.
That's awesome, man. I'm so glad it stayed diverse and there weren't just like inner squabblings and just people just being massacred and stuff. I was afraid that they were going to be like, okay, we got the land now we'll massacre those who stand against us or those who are different, but they didn't. And so that makes me feel a lot better now for supporting this family who took over Sicily. Wow, that's awesome. I mean, obviously, maybe if I'm sorry if you're a Muslim watching this and all that, but don't take it personally. I just kind of like I'm following the Normans, and so I kind of whatever the video is about is usually I kind of root for that team, So if it was the opposite, I'd be rooting, for the Muslim side, if I was following, them. So don't take it personally. That's just kind of how I watch videos, and that's how I have fun. It's a fun way of learning. You gotta have a side to root for, and it makes things more interesting. And all that cool stuff. But yeah, that was definitely. I really enjoyed this episode. I really did. I actually. Well, I never. I'm not gonna be following this family next, but I really enjoy when you're following a group of people and you're kind of there's. I mean, there wasn't just them following. There was an inner drama between them, and you kind of. I don't know. There was a backstory. It felt like I don't know. I know you guys are probably like, what are you talking about? But yeah, I really enjoyed this video. For obviously reasons, like I said, and I actually like now that we get to kind of get like the inner workings. What's the next one called? Of like I guess the aftermath of this. So when we're on to the Normans against the Romans, but okay, so we're going against the. I guess the Roman. I mean the Normans are going to try and get more land in Italy now. Cool, that'd be interesting. So I think that'll be a really cool to see. It's not going to be the same family. I guess this is going to be that 100 years later because they said they occupied it with no one standing up against them for 100 years. So I'm assuming this is 100 more years down the line, or maybe not. Maybe we continue with. Is it maybe gives me a year? Hold on a second. 10, 1081. Okay, so we might be with the same family. So that'd be really cool if it's the same family. I hope so. Uh, so it's not like we're not doing a 100 year jump. It's the same time period. They were just saying, Sicily that it was, no war basically for 100 years. So that was pretty cool. But anyways, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed this. It was definitely, I just enjoyed it. Like it's definitely like one of those favorites, that kind of stands out to me right now. So, uh, yeah, like, subscribe, and yeah, we'll catch you guys tomorrow with the next installment of Norman's Conquest. I'm really liking this. Let me know what you guys think below. I always like to kind of know because I know a lot of you. I get a lot of requests for different stuff, and I know some people are disappointed when I don't pick the topic or the people or the area that they want that they request. I see a bunch of requests and I kind of just go with one, that kind of seems that I'm more interested at that time, or one. I don't know what my reasoning is, kind of to pick whatever. And I know some people are disappointed I don't pick theirs, but I'm also curious to those who wanted me to do something else. Do you still find like what I pick interesting? Do you still like it? Like, are you kind of like, oh, I didn't know that. That's really cool. I'm glad you actually covered that because I didn't know that stuff. I got kind of interested, the people, if I didn't pick their thing, if they're still kind of interested in the video. I mean, actually, you guys probably already clicked off this by now. I should have said this earlier, but oh well. So yeah, like, subscribe, catch you guys in future videos. Always a blast. Have an amazing night or amazing day, like always, guys. And we will come back in tomorrow. So yeah. Peace, guys. Love you.